because we need to take our viewers now to Cape Town, where 54 permanent delegates will be sworn in at the National Council of Provinces this morning. The NCOP is composed of 90 delegates, 10 members from each province. Now, 6 of the 10 are permanent and 4 are special delegates. During the sitting of the chairperson of the NCOP, as well as the deputy, will be elected by the 54 permanent delegates. Let's take you now to Sakina, Kamwendo, as well as SABC News politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje, who are joining us there. Very good morning to you, SK. Take us through the latest conversations to come out of Cape Town this morning.
Well, good morning, Mkolisi, and welcome once more. And I'm feeling like I'm saying good morning once more from the Cape Town International Convention Centre, of course, a parliamentary precinct. And this morning, as you correctly point out, the business of the day is, of course, the elections here in the National Council of Provinces. And Mzwandile Mbeje, good morning once again, as well to Mr. George, who's the Secretary to Parliament. We all slept here, guys, and we're here again. So, Mr. George, firstly, the order of business today, if you can just give us a quick rundown of what's going to unfold.
Good morning, Sakina. Good morning to SABC News viewers. Today is the second sitting of Parliament. Yesterday it was the National Assembly, one House of Parliament. Today is the National Council of Provinces. National Council of Provinces is a body that is constituted to represent interest of all provinces. We have 9 provinces in our country, so the structure and composition of the National Council of Provinces is an equal distribution of seats to all the 9 provinces. So meaning that it's a house of 90 members, 10 for each of our provinces. That constitutes 90. The additional 10 is coming from local government, from Salga. Then it constituted as a 100-seat house. However, Salga comes for special meetings as non-voting delegates. So today is the constituting of the National Council of Provinces, which also must meet within 14 days after the declaration of the results. So we have seen that the provinces have said they've elected the members of the executive premiers, speakers, deputy speakers, and simultaneously they must also nominate 6 members that will be permanent delegates to the National Council of Provinces. So NCOP has got 2 types of delegates, permanent delegates and part-time delegates. They are called special delegates. Special delegates are 4. So 6 is permanent delegates that will relocate and come here. They won't form part of the legislation. However, the special delegates come when there's matters to be voted for in terms of provincial interest, like bills called Section 76 bills, Section 74. Those are the bills where it is mandatory in the Constitution that National Assembly, once it passes it must refer to the NCOP. There are bills that NA can only pass itself, but others require NCOP. So those special delegates will then come and vote as per mandates. So no person comes and votes for himself. It's a mandate of your province because it is such a board. So today's election, constituting of the House, would also entail electing office bearers, meaning the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the deputy chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, and then the chief whip of the National Council of Provinces. That's what we expect today. The first order of the business, Chief Justice will swear all the 54 members. Why 54? Is because the 6 of each, 6 times 9 gives us 54, whereas the 4 are already sworn in their provinces. So we'll be swearing in 54 members, and then thereafter the order of the business gets into the election of the chairperson as a first order of the business, presided over by the Chief Justice. Out of the chairperson, election of the deputy chairperson, of which the new chair would also preside over, and then thereafter the chairperson.
And of course, the chief whip will also be elected today.
Yes, the chief whip rather. So those are the 3 positions that would happen today in terms of the order of the business.
Well, Mr. George, thanks so much for explaining that to us, because we know that we need to let you go, given that the proceedings are about to get underway. So you need to go and get dressed and take your position. And I'm just going to have to ask you to step out that way for us. George is the Secretary to Parliament. And of course, just stopping by very briefly to give us a breakdown of the proceedings for today. And of course, how the House, the National Council of Provinces, is constituted. With Mzwandile Mbeje, a long night last night, Mzwai, and of course, here we are, back again.
Oh yes, we have to conclude the business as well, like they have to conclude the business that they've started. So as the eyes and ears of the nation, we have to be there to reflect all of that to them. So as you heard his explanation, quite clear what is different from what was happening yesterday and today. So clearly the focus being on provinces, making sure that provinces are represented, so all their interests, no one is left behind. And even the manner in which it was calculated, quite complex, but you can see the rationale was to ensure that no one is left behind.
And of course, as Mr. George was explaining, some of the bills through the National Assembly actually need concurrence in the National Council of Provinces in order to be passed.
Exactly, because that then tells you that everyone has been brought along and everyone understands, everyone's interest is represented, other than just passing the bills without involving or even engaging the people who will be affected by these laws, by these acts when they would have been passed. So clearly, this is democracy in action, Sakina, and we saw yesterday, up until right early this morning, it at play. It is what we crafted as a country, and then we are seeing it practicing, and we are practicing it at the same time.
Indeed. And it's going to be interesting once again today to see whether, again, we move along the same patterns in terms of the election of the chairperson, the deputy, and then, of course, the chief whip in the NCOP. But then, will it be another one whereby the ANC and DA have struck a deal as to who takes which position here?
You know, from the sources and from the indications, we are likely perhaps to only fill just one vacancy, because I think there's still a number of discussions ongoing. And even if that position is contested, it really is not going to take long. Remember, today it's only 54 members.
Yes.
So the first order, as Mr. George did indicate, is to swear in 54 members. And then even that administration of 54 members wouldn't really be a big deal compared to 400 members. Okay, yesterday would have been about 340 or somewhere there. So in terms of administration, it would be a lot easier. And from what I am hearing is that there is a possibility that we may only elect just one, maybe the chairperson, because there is still a number of engagements to deal with the rest.
Well, it all will unfold very shortly here at Parliament, sitting at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. And that's, of course, why we are here, to make sure that you, South Africa, and, of course, everybody watching from across the world have a front row seat to the second sitting of Parliament, of course, following yesterday's very eventful sitting of the first Parliament, the first sitting, rather, for the 7th Parliament here in Mzwai. It went on late into the night, but, of course, I think once it became clear that a deal had been done, there were no surprises, really.
I mean, there were no surprises. So we pretty much knew where it was going. I mean, if you have the majority party and the second big party teaming together, so clearly the outcome is almost a foregone conclusion. But given that you had people who have decided that they are not party to what was happening, so they were always going to make that statement, regardless of the numbers, but to record in the history books that on this day, so when they decided to join together, we stood against them. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. But in the end, it was also very interesting to hear, Sakina, the leaders of political parties, because as a democracy, even if you do not agree with the outcome, so you've got to accept it. And then after the president had been elected, and the leaders of the political parties, almost all of them, I think just one or two that were not able to speak. So they stood up and said, you know, we accept the outcome because this is a democratic outcome. Of course, we will be very active in how we hold you accountable. So where you do right, we'll support you. But where there are weaknesses, we'll shine the spotlight on them because it is their responsibility. We have sent them here to be the eyes and ears of the public out there. So these who are going to be forming the government or the national executive will have someone to hold accountable. And also, what I found interesting, and I think you even saw, I think we were speaking about this, how people reacted on social media when the EFF basically said, those theatrics we are known for are gone. We'll be robust, we'll be engaging because we have matured 10 years into our existence.
Yeah, and talking about how they will behave in opposition. And as you say, all the party leaders really magnanimous in their speeches last night, all lending their congratulations and support to the government, but as you say, without exception, making known that they will fulfill their duty as opposition parties and making sure that oversight is done and done vigorously.
Absolutely. But there is a big issue that all of us are still watching how it will end the issue of the members of the MK. We know that at some point they'll be sworn in. So what sort of role will they play? And Julius Malema gave us a bit of a glimpse into how they will be working together. He basically said, as small as we are, that is last night, so the MK members are coming. So we will form a formidable force. We will take this establishment, so to speak, as a united force. They already have a progressive caucus. So it will be very interesting once they take their rightful place. Their seats were empty. I'm sure they will be sworn in the coming days or weeks or even months. But it would be interesting. So what sort of posture they would take, given what they had been campaigning about, what they want to do. I mean, one of the things they wanted this constitution scrapped. Quite a lot of change that they would want to see happen, but of course they don't have those numbers. Now, South Africans have sent them quite a sizable chunk. So what is it that they're going to advance now that they'll be here? And when are they going to come here? So those are all areas and issues to look out for.
And it's going to be very interesting because the leader of MK Party, former President Jacob Zuma, of course, they've put out a communication that they will be holding a press briefing tomorrow. So we look forward to hearing what they say. But as you say, this is an unknown entity. This is an untested entity. So it's going to be interesting to see what posture they actually bring to Parliament. But with that being said, Mzwai, we look at how things have played out, and as you say, the numbers clearly speak to one direction, which is, of course, the Government of National Unity. Although, you know, is that what we're calling it now? Is that what it is? Because you heard even from the opposition members yesterday saying it's not a government of national unity. If anything, it's a grand coalition. So does it matter what we call it? What sort of implication or otherwise is there for that?
I think for me it will end up being the issue of semantics. And when opposition parties kept on saying, this is not a government of national unity. And the president, remember when he stood on that podium, he basically repeated it. He said, this is not two parties, not three parties. It's more, it's a government of national unity. I think at some point this will somehow be reduced to semantics. But what this is that it is a government formed by more than one party. And the question is the mandate that they have now been given. So how will they be able to then carry it? So I'm not going to speak about the issue of ideological differences. So what is important and what we will all be looking out for is the mandate of serving this country to the best of their ability.
Well, I think the mandate is pretty clear. The mandate is you've got to fix it, whatever is wrong, and you've got to move the country forward. And given who the members are that comprise this particular government in terms of the agreement, the framework agreement that was signed, they really cannot fail. Because if you look at the lead up to yesterday, the markets always know before us. I think these agreements have been struck. I said it. I didn't think it was going to take long. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be difficult. They knew where they were going bright and early. I still hold that belief. The markets this week, in the run-up to yesterday, we saw the rand strengthening. So, you know, clearly we can say that the markets had actually factored in the risk previously. We can also say, well, maybe they knew what was coming.
It's very possible, and I think many people have been saying you're just looking at the profile of the political parties and how established some of those political parties are. I mean, it's a fact, the ANC is the governing party, so everyone expects the ANC to have a steady hand. The official opposition, the DA, has been running, for example, this province of the Western Cape. So they have experience. And I think the markets will also factor in all those. That's why perhaps they become so jittery when you speak about the so-called left-leaning parties. But as you've said, I think I just want to go back to your point of saying they cannot fail. If, let's say, they were to fail, so to speak, that would be huge, giving huge ammunition to those parties that are standing
outside. And that's
outside.
what I mean when I say they can't fail, because the repercussions of that will be dire for all involved, because you've got now the ANC and the DA and the IFP, all of whom have had stints of government in this country. So together, they are supposed to make this work, take South Africa forward, and if they don't, surely they will be punished by the electorate in South Africa.
They will have to craft those agreements in a manner that their deadlock-breaking mechanisms really work, because I don't think South Africans will be able to tolerate the fiddling around while Rome burns. So clearly what they will have to do is that those deadlock-breaking mechanisms that I think they will factor in because they are different parties really work efficiently. People will not complain about the lack of water and then they don't know who to go to. I mean, they go to official opposition, they go to the governing party, they go to the IF, and then nothing is being done, because that would be an indictment really on those parties. And as you've said, we don't necessarily wait for five years in South Africa. So, our crafters of this democracy decided that somehow halfway, so we then test again through a different system of local government. So they would have that in their minds, that if you are not able to get this done in 2 years, South Africans will pass a judgment on you. And I'm sure if you're not delivering, you know what this will do.
Well, the task before them is a hefty one. If you think, I think it was Action SA's Ethel Trollip in his congratulatory message last night, once again citing the triple threat: poverty, unemployment, and inequality, and the fact that this has, of course, gone up in this democratic dispensation. So that has been an issue that the ANC, for example, in coming into government, has always had on their radar to address. But we haven't won in that regard.
Oh, yes. And again, I think we did speak about this yesterday. The constitution of the executive will then give you a glimpse into what will be their priorities, what sort of strategies they will put in place, who is doing what, and then how urgent are those tasks that they will be given. So how urgent will they attend to them? So the next coming days, Sakina, I think it's now, is it 4 days now?
Yes.
Will be quite key.
Yes.
Will be quite key, because on Wednesday, the president-elect will be officially inaugurated. So then the current government is dissolved, and we expect him to appoint his new executive that will include other parties.
I'll tell you what, let's put a pause on it right there, because that is the discussion that we will have when you come back to us next, in terms of looking at who is likely to get what when the president actually reveals who will make up his cabinet, given the deal that has been signed between the African National Congress, the DA, the IFP, and of course the PA. And as Mzwai said, we don't know in terms of other smaller parties and the role that they will be playing in all of this. Then we will find out, of course, exactly the extent of the engagement and also how each one will be looked after, taken care of, or just participate in this new setup. So all of that's still to come, but for now it's 10 o'clock. So Mkolisi, it's back to you in studio.
Certainly looking forward to all of that, SK. Thank you very much indeed for bringing us those latest conversations to come out of Cape Town this hour.